Good evening, and welcome back to our closing ceremony for our STEM conference for girls for 2021. Thank you so much. It was great to see everyone today, and to participate with you in all the workshops. I hope you had a good time. I want to thank our planning committee members. These are all volunteers who have worked very hard in the past 3 months to make this conference a success. I am not sure they're on board with us here, but I would like to thank Marissa, Kira, Caroline, Jean, and Natasha. I couldn't have done this without them, and I think we put on a really good conference today. Tonight, it's my pleasure to introduce our closing keynote speaker, Dr. Donna Nelson. Dr. Nelson is a chemistry professor at the University of Oklahoma. She received her PhD in chemistry from the University of Texas in Austin. She is passionate about improving the image and presentation of science and scientists to the public. Her activities include undergraduate organic chemistry textbook evaluations, as well as advising students and advising mentors on assessing students' attitude and perspectives and opinions about STEM and about academic performances. She's also known for the Nelson Diversity Surveys, and it's about looking into the research. I think she'll tell you more about them than me, but improving the presentation of science and the images of science to the public is one of the major parts of that. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Dr. Nelson and give you the floor.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's a great honor to be able to speak to so many fabulous young students. I'm happy to be here with you this evening. Let me just say, to start out with, I'm going to give you some ideas about practices that will help you succeed, at least from my experience. They helped me. And one thing I believe that is particularly important, given the fact that you're at this conference, I think that it would be good for you to regard this conference as an opportunity that you have had to meet many fabulous mentors that you will be able to stay in touch with. And these will be trusted colleagues, trusted mentors that you will be able to get advice from or to talk to in later on throughout your life if you ever have any issues. Now, you may just go sailing right through life with no issues at all, but I don't think many people do. Most human beings have some issues now and then, and you especially if you don't have a scientist in your family, a scientist who would understand what you're dealing with, then you will need some trusted advisors and trusted friends. And these are the people that you have met at this conference. So I urge you to stay in contact with them. This is a fabulous opportunity for you. And then let me go ahead and tell you about the other items that I have for advice. I always mention these at every time that I'm asked to speak at a meeting. And so these are characteristics that help innovation and success. So first, retain your integrity and your ethics in everything you do, whether it's professional or personal. Retain your integrity and your ethics. Always try to do the right thing. You're going to have different choices, and that can help define who you are. And so that, I think, is probably the most important thing. Second, dream big. You're going to have things that you want to do, and those are your dreams. And so dream big, have big dreams, big goals. I tell my students, if you shoot for the moon, you might hit Mount Everest. It doesn't mean that you're always going to attain these goals, but the higher your aspirations, the farther you'll go, usually. Another piece of advice is to be persistent. Don't give up. Don't let others discourage you in achieving your goals. Everything that I've ever done that was important, there were people there telling me either I couldn't do it or I shouldn't do it. And if these are things that you really believe that you are capable of, then you should go for it. Don't let others block your way. So be persistent. Another piece of advice is to be ready. Be able to recognize a great opportunity and seize it. You might have been told that I was a science advisor for some television shows. And a lot of times I'm asked, well, how did you become a science advisor? You're in Oklahoma and the television shows are made out in Hollywood. How did you get selected? And the answer is, well, I've read a story in a magazine of the American Chemical Society in which the producer of a particular successful television show was being interviewed. And he said that they didn't have any money for a science advisor, but that they really needed one. And so I looked at that and I thought, wow, this is an opportunity to be able to work with him. And so I got in touch with the person who had interviewed him because I knew that person would be able to get in touch with him. And I said, can you give him a message? Let him know he has a volunteer if he really wants one. And guess what? They got back in touch with me. And they said, is this true that you will help us? And I said, absolutely, I'd be thrilled to. And so that's how it started. And this was a wonderful opportunity that I had to work with them and help increase the accuracy of the science that was shown on that television show. And my last piece of advice is actually advice that came from Steve Jobs. You may know who Steve Jobs is. Steve Jobs invented the Apple computer and the iPod and the iPhone and all of this. He was a fabulous, fabulous inventor. And he was asked in an interview that I saw, he was asked, what is it that you used to help you set the goals of these fabulous things that you invented? And he said, well, you have to look for the gaps. That's the key phrase. Look for the gaps. And he said, you have to select items that people need, things that are significant, things that are possible, and things that are affordable. And if you read about him and you find out about him, you'll realize that all of these things fit those criteria. Those indeed did define the things that he invented. And so those are my pieces of advice for you. And I hope they will help you. And so I am told now that some students may have some questions for me, and I will be happy to answer them if you do.
All right, I think that is my cue. Hello, everybody. My name is Marissa. I want to remind everyone of the phone number that you can text your questions to. That phone number is 505-539-0394. And you can text your questions and we'll make sure that Dr. Nelson is able to see them and I will ask them and she will answer. We do have a few questions already that have come in. And the first one is, you said to dream big. what was your big dream growing up?
Well, this is, your big dreams may seem sort of bragging, immodest, but my big dream, I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to be famous. I wanted to make a difference in the world. I didn't want to live a life of obscurity. I didn't have a dream of getting rich. I wanted to make a difference. And I think I've done that. So I do think that I have achieved that dream. But that is a big dream. It really is, because I am not the one who decides whether something I've done was important or not. The way that you know whether something that you've done was important is you'll get awards. And so organizations will identify you and the things that you've done as being very important. And those are the ways that you know that that you've achieved that you've helped people. That was very important to me. My father and grandfather were both MDs, and I didn't want to be an MD, but I was inspired by them in that I wanted to help people and help the community. I grew up in a very small town, and my father was the only doctor in that town. So he had to serve the whole community. So if a woman was having a baby at 2 a.m., he would get up, get dressed, get in the car, drive out to their house and deliver her baby at their home. So he was an extremely important person. And so that was I guess that influenced me. That was one of my role models.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Nelson. And just a follow-up question from me on that is, what advice would you give the young girls or the girls that are watching now when they find somebody that influences them? What are things they can do to either emulate, or should they follow them? How do they engage in a conversation with those people that might be an influence? Do you have any ideas or advice for them?
Yeah, if you know what it depends on what stage they're at. If you know what their projects are or their activities, make yourself valuable. Go in and offer to help. Offer to help them with their research or with their projects. And you will find out that the payment for the payment, even if you are a volunteer, is that you get to watch this up close and you get to learn those characteristics. And so, it is important to select somebody that you admire. And in my case, I wanted to work with people that had a huge impact so that I could watch them and see how they were able to have, that impact. And the more you watch and the closer you are to them, the more you can learn. And that's really what is important. So for example, one of the person that I postdoced with a chemistry professor who was at Purdue. And just as I joined his group, he won the Nobel Prize in chemistry. So you can see, that is an indication you've had a lot of impact if you win a Nobel Prize. And so, that fit my criteria. I felt it was a great privilege to be able to work with him. And by the way, talking about persistence, he had never hired a woman before. I was the first woman to ever work for him, and I knew it. And I did not let that hold me back. I persisted. So you can see this advice that I gave you, I lived it.
Wow, what a amazing story. That's awesome. So for everybody that's watching out there, remember that you never know who it is you might be running into or walking with or talking to. So always we should be on our best behavior and also learn from the people that are around us. That's amazing. To be able to say you've worked with a Nobel Peace Prize winner. That's awesome.
It was a chemistry, Nobel Prize in chemistry.
Chemistry. Awesome. Thank you for that clarification. All right, let's see what we have here. So one other question from someone we have, I really like science, but I'm not sure what's my favorite. How did you decide to go to chemistry?
Oh, that's a little bit of a funny story, actually. When I first went away to college, I was intending to be an MD. And you know that to become an MD, you have to have a lot of chemistry. So I started out taking chemistry. And then as I got closer to graduating, that was when I realized that I really admired the life of a professor. The professor traveled and had more impact, more than just in their local community, the way my father and grandfather did. And so that attracted me. And indeed, I am very glad that I made that selection. When I go see the doctor, probably the same experience that you have, you know, you wait outside and you can see the people, the patients are led into these individual rooms. And so the doctor goes from one room to another, seeing the patients. And so in each room, there is, I'm sorry to put it this way, but there's a complaining problem in every one of those rooms. And I remembered my father talking about that, you know, about having to go in and listen to the people complaining, you know, all day long. And I enjoy what I do because I get to talk to bright, healthy, happy students. You know, sometimes they complain, but not all the time. And I really enjoy that. So I'm glad that I made that selection. I hope that answered that question.
I think so. I think it did. All right. So we've got another interesting question. Do you think that you should just jump at every opportunity you hear about? Or are there ever times you think you shouldn't take an opportunity and be persistent?
Oh yeah, you don't want to take every opportunity that comes open to you. I mean, I guess it depends on how many there are, but I have to turn them down. So a lot of times. So you want to take the opportunities that move you forward in the direction you want to go. You have to be selective. You know, there are far more opportunities than you're going to have time for. Now, one of the things that I had to do in the past was on speaking invitations. I couldn't accept every single speaking engagement. And then because I was having to travel, oh my gosh, I was having to take 3 and 4 trips per month. It was a lot of traveling. Now we have Zoom. And so I am able to accept a lot more speaking engagements. But that's an example of how you have to be selective, but also things change. And so you have to be flexible, but you want to accept the opportunities that will move you forward in the direction that you want your career or your life to go.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Nelson.
And sometimes you have to create opportunities.
That's a good point. So if there was how would you recommend somebody do that? Or can you give an example of a time maybe where you had to create an opportunity?
Yeah, you can seize the opportunity. A lot of it's recognizing the opportunity, like what I did with the television advising. I saw the comment made in the magazine, and I perceived it to be an opportunity. When I went on set one time and I was talking to that producer who had made that comment, I asked him, I said, you know, that magazine, it's the magazine of the American Chemical Society. I said, you know, there's a lot of members of the American Chemical Society. That magazine went out to 168,000 people. How many volunteers did you get? And he smiled and said, 1. So that was me. I was the only person out of all those members who perceived it as an opportunity.
Wow, that's awesome. This is an interesting question. I am really shy around people. Do you have any ideas or advice to help me not be so shy in front of other people?
Yeah, that was something that I endured. It was a major problem of mine. It was a major, major problem. I had so much difficulty just talking to people. I would have a few select friends, and I would be very good friends with them. And then I was so shy, I could barely speak in front of other people. And guess what? You know, if you become a professor, you're going to have to be able to speak in front of people. You've got to be able to teach a class. And so the way that I got over it was I simply I recognized that I was just going to have to get over it. And so I decided I like to do activities that help, that offer rewards in multiple different ways. And so what I did is I would go to professional meetings and give formal presentations. And that did 2 things. It forced me up on the stage to make a presentation in front of people. And in my mind, I was thinking, if I do this enough, I will eventually get over it. And the other good part about that is every time you give a presentation in public, you have, it's an entry on your resume. And so I kept making these entries on my resume indicating that I could speak, that I had spoken in public. And I don't think I really got over it until I taught that first class. The first class I taught that was something like 300 students. And so when you go in and you face 300 students, I teach organic chemistry. When you face 300 students several times a day, and the organic chemistry classes are mostly pre-med, pre-vet, pre-dent, pre-pharmacy, and those students really care about their grades. And so these are students who cared a great deal, and they were really interested in the material that I was speaking about. And that one course, by the end of that course, I had gotten over being shy. And the other thing, if you focus a great deal on what you have to do, what you want to accomplish, and not on yourself. Don't think about yourself when you're speaking. Think about what's your goal. Occasionally, those feelings of shyness or nervousness would come back. There have been a few times I've given Capitol Hill briefings. And so that's to members of Congress, for example. And it would be on topics that were very important. The Nelson diversity surveys, reporting the representation of women and minorities among faculty. And when I would feel those flurries of nervousness coming back, I would just think, I've got to do a really good job. This is for the other people. This isn't for me. And then you're able to focus on your goal and what you're doing for other people, not on yourself.
That's really good advice. Focus on the others and the goal of your speaking and what you're interacting with. That's really good. I'm going to take this moment just to remind one more time of the audience of the phone number to text your questions to. We do have a few more that are already in, but if you'd like to send an additional question, or if you have another question, if you've already asked one, the phone number is 505-539-0394. Again, 505-539-0394 to text your questions for Dr. Nelson. We have another question. Do you have any tips for kids that are interested in becoming a chemist or anything like that in the future?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can get into it as soon as as soon as you can. I know that there are even programs for high schoolers who are wanting to get involved in research. So you can go in and actually get involved in doing lab work and doing research even while you're in high school. But in my opinion, the most important thing the most important benefit that comes from that is the opportunity to make contact with a person that will be a trusted advisor in the future. If you stay in chemistry or really in any science, and once you start going up the ladder, and you get higher and higher, you're going to experience things like people being jealous of you, people competing with you, and sometimes due to the jealousy or the competition, it's not always fair and it's not always pretty. And so you may really need and appreciate those trusted advisors, people who can help you, people who can listen to you if you start experiencing adversity. You may not, but if you do, it will really be helpful to have a person that you can turn to pose questions to, and you can trust them to tell you the truth and keep everything in confidence. And so it's an opportunity to make that sort of a contact, and that can be very important to you later on.
So would you recommend like a parent or a teacher, a school counselor, or just a friend? Or so we've got we have a variety of audience, but our main target for our girls that attended today were 5th through 8th graders. What would you recommend for them?
So for them, there probably aren't going to be that many programs for you to go in and do research with a professor at a university. But you can still identify the people that you trust. And, they may be teachers, they may be counselors, and you can keep those people as trusted advisors for the rest of your life. But you're going to need trusted advisors at every level. So when you go into the university, you will see that there are people that you can trust. And, just always keep this in mind, of making a relationship that could last the rest of your life. Keep that in mind.
That's great. We've got 3 more questions. We'll wait a few more minutes to see if anything comes through. Were you, sorry, this is a question. Have you ever been picked on because you were smart when you were growing up? If so, how did you handle that? You just mentioned competition, right? But this is a question. Were you ever picked on, and how did you handle that?
No, not in high school. In high school, I had friends. There were sort of cliques, groups, and I was friends with all of them. I had friends among all of them, and so you have to branch out. Don't gossip about people. That's a great way to make enemies. Don't gossip. Don't participate in gossip. That's for high schoolers. That's, I think, a number one piece of advice. Just stay out of all that. And as far as getting picked on because I'm smart, yeah, that still happens. It happens now, because I've won a lot of awards and I work with people, and sometimes they haven't won so many awards and it makes them unhappy. And so they're jealous. And, I don't talk about the awards that I've won to the people that I work with. You don't want to like rub it in and make people angry, but it happens. That's part of life. And the worst thing that you could do would be to hold yourself back because other people are jealous. You definitely don't want to make that mistake. That's not going to help anybody. You always want to be as much as you can be.
That is great advice. Thank you, Dr. Nelson. 2 more questions and we will wrap up our Q&A. Why is it important? You just mentioned about being friends with all the different people, different cliques. Why is it important that we go to school with and work with people that are not like us? Why is that important?
Well, you're going to need all these people who aren't like you. I mean, you know, one of the things that we're really working with now is moving science forward. And you may not realize this, but I'm Native American, and there are very few Native Americans out there. I grew up in a town that was predominantly Native American. And, you know, we looked at things differently. I didn't know it then, you know, but we did. I mean, it was a Native American community. We viewed things a little bit differently. And so when I went away, I got my bachelor's degree at University of Oklahoma, and the vast majority of the people were white. And so I had to learn to look at things from their perspectives because I was in classes with them. The classes were taught by white males. I had to make good grades under those white males. I had to view things from their perspectives. And so I had 2 ways of viewing things. You know, the way that things were viewed in my community and the way that things were viewed at the University of Oklahoma. You have to be successful with both. But what I found out at the end is while it's some extra trouble to develop both of those perspectives, having that duality helps your creativity immensely, because you go in and you are able to view problems in a totally original way. You will see things from a perspective that other people have never seen them. And it makes you so much more creative, and you're able to do so much more so fast. And that is a contribution to science. It moves science forward. And you can, if like, you know, so I am Native American, but I'm not Hispanic. I'm not Black, but Hispanics will have their ways of viewing things, and Blacks will have their ways of viewing things. And we need those perspectives. We need to interact with all of these people, with all these different perspectives, because it enriches our science. And when you talk to these people, and with the perspectives different from yours, and you learn from them, it enriches you, and it moves science forward. It moves you forward. It just makes you a much more creative person. That's been my experience.
That is a great piece of advice. Be open to other perspectives and different walks of life. That is really, really great, because it does add to each other rather than take away from what we bring to the table, right? Or a group project. Be open to hearing those things. That is awesome, Dr. Nelson.
Yeah, you will benefit. I find it's a huge benefit.
That's great. We've got one last question before we close out. So the last question is, what piece of advice do you give your students on the first day of school or the first day of class?
Come to class. You know, listen, try to listen. I try to, I don't know if the students know it or not, but I try to make the classes sort of fun. Now that is a challenge, making organic chemistry fun. And there is so much jam-packed in there that you really can't add additional new information. And so what I have started doing, and the students seem to like it, is I give my lectures and I film them, and I have the students watch those films before they come into class. And then during class, we simply just work problems all during class. And, you know, this is one thing that scientists have in common. We love solving problems. It's just fun to solve problems. Mm-hmm. And so they really enjoy this, solving problems during the class. And it's sort of, you know, it makes it like a game, and they enjoy it.
Great. So show up to class, everyone, and listen to, and listen, not just to your professors, your teachers, parents as well, because they're also guiding lights for our future. And Dr. Nelson, thank you. This concludes our Q&A. Lena, I am going to turn it back over to you before we drop off.
Let me just say thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and good luck, all of you. I know that you're
Thank
going
you.
fabulously.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Nelson.
Bye-bye.
Awesome. Inspiring. Bye-bye. What an inspiring talk. And Dr. Nelson is so generous with her time to share with us her experiences. I want to remind you of the theme for this conference. The theme is Earth Stewardship through STEM. We really need creative young people in STEM now more than ever to help take better care of our Earth. Hopefully you learned some tips today in your workshops. The world is facing so many issues right now, and we all need to help and get some fresh ideas and new solutions. Climate change, food shortages, pollution, air, water, and soil, and increasingly devastating wildfires are some of the issues we face. Fortunately, as hopefully you have learned through this conference, experts in STEM are already working on some solutions to these problems, and we hope you'll be one of them. And by coming to this conference and thinking about these issues, you are now part of the solution too. We hope that this conference inspires you both to explore your interest in STEM and to think about ways that you can start to heal our planet. So to encourage you to think about this, we are launching an essay or video contest on this theme. We would like you to research more, and we gave you some resources about what ideas, what solutions you can participate in to be an Earth steward, a steward of our Earth. You have until November 21st, so that's 3 weeks, to submit an essay or a video on this topic. You will find all the details and information in your swag bag that you got today. You also have in your swag bag a smartphone microscope and with some information about a photo contest for that. So again, you have 3 weeks to produce, to send us some photos that you've taken. And the instructions are there. And we have a video that we have on our YouTube channel that you can watch to learn how to use it. Okay, this is all for tonight. I hope you had a great time, and I hope to see you again soon. And you are now part of the STEM Santa Fe family. Have a good night.